Hello and welcome back to another episode of the review show. Tonight I'm joined by Jake Stewart of Groupama FDJ. Jake, thanks for coming on. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. No, it's a pleasure to be here.
Cheers. Now, we're just going to take a look back at your season. So let's rewind to the start of 2021 and tell us how did your winter training go?
Yeah, I think obviously last year was pretty complicated with COVID still, even though we thought we was at kind of over the brunt of it, and then it started all kicking off again, really, didn't it? Beginning of December last year. So yeah, it's kind of actually it's pretty complicated winter. Usually we'd go away to Calpe or whatever and training camps with the team and all that. And but yeah, in the end, basically ended up staying in the UK for the whole winter and doing my training back in the UK with when Spain put a ban on Brits traveling to Spain and stuff like that. So yeah, I pretty much ended up doing my whole winter back in the UK, and then got out to the south of France 2 weeks before the 2 weeks before my first race, basically. So at the end of Jan, to get a little block in some warm weather. And then that set me up for the season. But yeah, it was pretty odd just because didn't really know where the form was at, just because I hadn't really been on a training camp ridden with other guys who was just hacking around the British countryside on my own.
So then you start off in Bessages, so it's the start of your first full pro year, and you start flying, including a 10th place in the time trial, which is not an easy time trial, and fourth on GC. So, I mean, you must have been delighted with that race.
Yeah, I think, because I'd raced the weekend before at GP Marseilles, and we took a wrong turn like 40k to go just before it was about to kick off up like the main climb of the race. So yeah, that was a bit of a kick in the teeth, because actually I was feeling pretty decent that day, and it was kind of parkours that suited me. So yeah, going into Bessèges, we was all pretty motivated after taking a wrong turn and basically flicking ourselves out the race. But to be fair, like I said, didn't really know where I was going into the season, just because I hadn't been training with the other boys on the team and hadn't done any testing or anything like that. They'd usually do it at training camp. So it was a nice surprise, rocking up at Bessèges and going pretty well. And tried my hand in the sprints a couple of times, and then really surprised myself in a TT. Just it's never been my forte, TTs, and to come away with 10th on a TT like that, I was pretty chuffed, really.
It's a pretty nasty TT, is it? That hill at the end is horrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was. I remember recceing it, and I think there was a headwind going out as well, which was like a pretty nasty headwind down the river. And then you hit this climb. I think it was K.5, 2K to finish, and it was nasty one. And especially on a TT bike as well, it's completely different how you put the power down, especially up a climb as well. So I didn't know work on it over the winter or anything like that. So it kind of made that 10th place a bit like even more impressive. Just the fact, I jumped on this bike for the first time in 6-8 months and managed to come away with a result like that.
How did you feel on the Queen stage when you made it into the split? Well, it was like a massive kind of front group. That must have been pretty good for the confidence, considering who else was in the group.
Yeah, I think I remember the start of that was full gas. It was like an hour and a half until that split kind of went, and nothing went up the road before it. And I was kind of hanging in there on the climbs and suffering my way through, and then finally found myself pinged off the front with a couple of others just as it flattened off, and kind of just kept the pressure on, and looked behind, and there was a group of I think 12 or 15 of us, and basically went to the finish. And that was really nice confidence boost, just to be racing my second race as a pro, and to be in that point at the end of the race so early on in the season. It was it was a nice confidence boost.
Then you head to Omloop, and you take, let's be honest, you took everybody by surprise with a rather stunning second place. So looking back at the race, the first split up that, I can't remember which climb it was. Where were you on that first split? Because I think only about 10 guys managed to get clear.
Yeah, to be fair, I kind of remember, because like Omloop, it was never the plan for me to to be there at the finish. That was never what I was planning for. And basically I'd done my job heading on to the Wolvenberg. So you come off the big main road, dual carriageway, you turn right down a little road, and basically my job was just to position the boys for that right hand corner. So Stefan and Jeanette's were, at the front of the race when we hit that small climb, Wolvenberg, and then you turn right at the top of Wolvenberg along that cobbled road that I can't remember the name of, and then back onto the main road after there. And kind of, that was my job, and I positioned them, and kind of got into that little road, and I was 20, 30 guys back, and didn't really, wasn't thinking too much about it, just following the wheels in front. And then I think like you said, a couple of guys went away, 10 guys, I think that was with Pigcock, weren't it, went right across to it, and Jeanette's, and even there, I was still too far back, I couldn't really see what was going on, and kind of came back together, and then just kept finding myself at the front of the race, and found myself dropped a few times, and bridging the gap again to get back to the front, and basically got to the Bosberg, and the DS said on the radio, like, all you need to do is get over this climb now, and then it's downhill to the finish, and we'll go for Jake. So
how was the Muir?
In Omloop.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't do Van Jolisbergen, did we?
Yes, you did, though. You did it first before the Bosberg.
Oh God, I can't even remember now.
That's how good it was.
There you go, that I was I was full gas.
How was the Bosberg then? Because it looks, it's only about a K 6% or something. But
to be fair, I was suffering, like I said, I was probably dropped on the Mer, because I was dropped a few times before the Bosberg and came back, and Bosberg, I knew that was the last climb of the race, and all I needed to do was get over the top of it. So just went full, and managed to get over the top of it. It wasn't really gapped to distance or anything, and back then it was just got to recover for the finish, and Stefan and Jeanette were placing me for the finish there, and I just knew I had two wheels to follow, and that's just kind of what I did.
Were you surprised how much you had left in the finish, because you finished fast?
I was usually early season I always used to struggle with cramp, and I was struggling with it a bit at Bessèges, and it wasn't really, we were still trying to kind of figure out the best way to manage it and deal with it, and Omloop was like the first time that season that I hadn't even cramped at the finish, and I was certainly surprised with how I was feeling at the finish, because Jeanette's and Stefan were placing me, and I kind of lost their wheels a couple of times in the last K, and it wasn't until that little chicane where I found Jeanette's again, and then just kind of kicked out of his wheel from there to the finish, and it definitely, I was surprised with, I don't know if it was I was flying or the other guys were swinging, but I was feeling good on the day, and it was really nice, to come away with a second.
So it's your first World Tour race and your first proper season as a pro. You weren't the team leader. You were working for other people. You've been dropped a number of times, and you walk away with second place. That's pretty special.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I summed it up at the time as well. I think certainly for everyone, like myself included, it was a massive surprise just to see myself at that level so early on in my first year as a pro. But I guess I'd kind of shown glimpses of it the year before. Not on a huge stage like that, but Tour de Limousin was kind of, the first glimpses of me showing that I can compete at, within the World Tour teams. It wasn't a World Tour race, but and then Bessèges, was kind of, it wasn't a World Tour race, but it was pretty much World Tour standard race. It kind of, as you say, it was special and a huge surprise to everyone.
Next big one was 6th place in the Knocker course. A tough day out. Breakaway was away. They get caught right at the very end, and you sprint up the cobbles to 6th. How was that race for you?
Nokia course is a tough race. I think they put more cobbled sections in this year as well from previous years, so it was a little bit harder. But it's just it's just a classic semi-classics race. It was full gas and a tough race, and Yeah, I remember because it was the fella that stayed away in the breakaway for the win, didn't he? And then it was just us guys behind, I think, riding for third or second on the day. I can't remember, but yeah, it was a pretty sketchy finish into the bottom of the Nokia Berg. You come down like a little descent, and I was kind of early season. I was kind of struggling to place myself in the sprints, and yeah, kind of found myself a bit too far back, but yeah, kind of had the power to kick, and yeah, it's a sprint on cobbles. So once you're up to speed, it's difficult to get around the guys in front of you, and kind of yeah, just rolled sixth on the day. But yeah, it was a tough race, and it was another result that kind of consolidated on the start of the season for me.
How did you find E3?
Oh God, which one was E3?
You've got some memory for races.
Oh yeah, E3.
E3 was the Asgreen one, didn't it, with the big solo?
Oh yeah, E3. Oh yeah, that was a tough day out. Yeah, yeah, I struggled, to be fair, at the finish there. I was struggling with cramp. And yeah, I think there was Asgreen, and then there was a big group behind, weren't there? And I was just kind of floating in that group. But yeah, that was a tough day out actually. Yeah, but to be fair, I can't remember too much about it.
Just deleted these memories from your brain.
Yeah.
So then we go to a run of really high level World Tour stage races. So you go to Romandy, you go to Tour de Suisse, both tough races. How was that experience, those kind of really big, demanding 1 week stage races?
Yeah, I think yeah, I didn't really get a huge gauge for how hard they were, because obviously that was when. So Romandy was my first race back after I broke my hand at Cholet, with Buani in that instance. So kind of, Cholet was like a week before Flanders, which I was supposed to be riding, and then didn't ride Flanders because I broke my hand. So kind of my break after the classics was pushed back a couple of weeks, and kind of took that little break after the classics, one and a half week earlier. And then I was like 2 weeks on the turbo after that, kind of recovering from that injury. So yeah, I kind of went to Romandy and didn't really know where my level was. I'd been on the turbo a lot. I'd done, a couple of hours here and there on the road, but I hadn't done any, big training going into it. And obviously Romandy is a tough race. The weather's always real shitty. And it was kind of a shock to the system again. I kind of had to find my place in the peloton again, and find the level that I was at. And then, when we realized that actually I wasn't at the level that I was, at the start of the season and in the classics, it was kind of, turned to doing a job for the team and stuff like that. But then, yeah, Tour de Suisse was a month after, I think. They kind of had like a month between Romandy and Swiss with no racing. And, I think that was kind of a mistake on the planning of my calendar, just because I was kind of thriving off racing and having that rhythm. I was getting into a good rhythm of racing, and kind of, yeah, Romandy and then a month with no racing, and Tour de Suisse kind of got me out of that rhythm again. So again, I had to find my legs at the start of Tour de Suisse and find my place in the peloton again, and kind of, yeah, just it was kind of like 2 months where I wasn't really at the level that I wanted to be, and kind of wasn't at the level that the team were expecting me to be at. And it was it was pretty tough 2 months, just kind of trying to find form, and I didn't really come away with much over them 2 races.
I'll go back to Cholet. I forgot that one. So the big incident with Buhani, you're coming in, he closes the door on you. I don't know how you didn't manage. I don't know how you kind of dodged. I think you said you broke your hand, but I don't know how you didn't manage something worse. So what I was wondering was, first year pro, sometimes that would have put people off speaking out about how Buhani was behaving. Did you think twice about that, or were you just going to speak your mind?
No, I think I was just going to speak my mind. The thing that annoyed me the most about the whole situation was the fact that after we'd crossed the line, I went over to him and I was basically like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't ride like that. And he just told me, I had no respect and I've got to respect him and all this shit. And I was just thinking, well, you've just closed the door on me. You've clearly got no respect for me. So, what the fuck do you mean about having respect? Like, it's not a matter of having respect. It's like me having respect for him. It's the fact that, you can't just stick someone in the barriers. and yeah, that for me, that was the big thing, because it was kind of like, it kind of, to me, it felt like it goes back to that, the old days where it was like, you find your place in the peloton, you work for your your respect, and you do your 2 years being everyone's bitch, and you earn the respect, and then all of this. But the peloton's completely changed now. It's we've got young boys, Pogacar, guys like this that are coming up and winning the Tour de France in their first attempt at the race. So like, it's kind of a completely different completely different generation now, and it's not really the done thing. And this whole idea of I had no respect just kind of was like, well, I wanted to speak out about it because it was just ridiculous what was being said, and the whole situation. So yeah, I think regardless, I was just going to speak out about it anyway.
And he ended up getting banned for the move, didn't he? Did you think that was a fair kind of cop?
Yeah, I think the UCI had set a precedent with the the incident with Groenewegen and Jakobsen. So if the UCI are wanting to be consistent and real make a stance for it, then yeah, fair enough. He got, I think it was a 2-month ban or something in the end. But yeah, I think if the UCI want to make a point and a precedent, and want to be implementing the same rules throughout the season, then that's what they need to do.
So you did Romandy, Swiss, and next on the bloody hard week-long stage races was Tour of Poland, where you were 8th on that really difficult day that Nikias Arndt won with the kind of lap circuit, uphill grind, really tough day. If I remember right, team did a great job that day. I think you were at the front, and then when you opened up the sprint, maybe it was just a tough one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think like I said, like Swiss and Romandy, I was really struggling, and kind of Poland, I started to find my level again and find my legs. And yeah, granted, it's not there's not a huge start list at Poland. Everyone's preparing for, is it the Tour? Yeah, going into the Tour in the Vuelta or whatever. So there wasn't a huge start list, but kind of that was where I was starting to feel myself again, that the way I was going at the start of the season. And that day where I was 8th, but the team did an amazing job for me all day. And in the end, I just ended up, I had one guy in front of me from the team, and I just ended up opening up too early, and kind of just paid for it towards the line in the last 50 odd meters, and just got swamped. But yeah, like that was kind of that was a stage that I talked about with the team for quite a while, and was kind of one of the stages that I wanted to target. That's kind of the finish that will suit me, I think, going forward in the future. I'm not a pure sprinter. I've just got a fast finish on me after a hard day, and kind of that finish was kind of perfect for me. So yeah, the team committed massively for us, and unfortunately it didn't pay off, but it was a good showing.
Do you prefer an uphill or a flat sprint after a tough day? Where do you think you're the fastest?
Yeah, I think after a tough day, like Omloop obviously is a hard day on the bike, and then it's a flat finish, and I think that's probably where I'm gonna fare best in the future. But like a 6% drag or whatever it was, there was in Poland as well. It's kind of it certainly suits me. I'm not the heaviest of guys. I'm pretty light, and I've got a decent kick, and can kick out fairly decent power numbers. So I think certainly the more I develop in my career, and where I get guided from the team, well, it can be a good finish for me, I think.
Going further forward, you then represented GB at the Worlds. How was that experience?
Yeah, that was really special, actually. I think World Championships in Belgium, after the shit 2 years that we've had with COVID and stuff like that, it was always going to be a big event. Kind of World Championships in like the motherland of cycling was always going to be a big event. And it certainly didn't disappoint. Flanders certainly didn't disappoint, and it was it was huge crowds, and it was a really good race. And but yeah, for me, it was it was my first World Championships, my first Pro World Championships, and having it in Flanders, and the team that I was with, kind of I'd grown up watching Cav racing, and watching Chasing Legends and stuff like this, and watching him win the World Championships when he did in Copenhagen, and to be riding alongside him, and then also like guys that I've grown up riding with, like Pidcock and Fred and Ethan, was pretty special. And it was for sure, it's certainly a day that I'll remember throughout my whole career.
When did you step off?
The last circuit on the last Flanders circuit. We got to the bottom of that. I can't remember what the climb was called. The steep tarmac one that you turn left at the first time you hit the circuit. I positioned Pidcock into that, and then called it a day. Me and Swifty just rolled back to Leuven from there.
Then it was Paris-Roubaix. For the first time in a long time, a wet, muddy, the thing that fans on social media love and most riders absolutely bloody hate. So how was that experience?
Yeah, I mean, Roubaix, like, for me, it was a massive anticlimax because I didn't even make it to that first sector. I was positioning Stefan like 5k out from that first sector, and there was a left-hand corner, and me and Stefan had crashed before, but me and Stefan both just washed out on that left-hand corner on the tarmac, and it was the shock and the impact when I hit the ground, kind of took it out me and winded me a bit, and it took me a couple of minutes to get my composure. But by then, the race had gone, and I jumped in the broom wagon after the first sector. But that was we made a mistake with the equipment choices, and we was running too wide of tires on too skinnier rims, and paid for it in the corners. So
not great.
No, not great at all.
So looking back at the year, you've done 4 World Tour stage races, week-long stage races. Can you see a progression? Do you feel yourself getting stronger, or do you think that maybe won't come until next season?
Yeah, I think, Romandy and Tour de Suisse are 2 really hard races, and I think just to get them under your belt with all the climbing and everything like that was was a good stepping stone. And certainly once I'd recovered from the races, I was, you kind of gain another level just, in the climbs and racing like that. Certainly, I think I felt a progression from doing them races, and then obviously next year we'll look at doing a Grand Tour and kind of progressing it from there again, and seeing where that takes us.
You finished off at the road race, the British road race in October. So that's starting in February, finishing October, first pro season. That's some effort.
Yeah, some effort. Kind of explains, why my leg. Yeah, for me, British Champs was the first time my legs have really, deserted me this season. And I think considering that I'd started at the end of February and was kind of racing through to middle of October, for that to be the only race where the legs completely fell off and I had nothing in the tank, I think I can't be too disappointed with the race. It wasn't, I'd made the front split, I was there, but on the day the legs just said no. So I think just the long season that I had in the legs, and a lot of mental and physical fatigue kind of paid for it at national champs. But I think looking back on the whole season, there's not too much you can be disappointed about.
How hard was your first pro season?
It wasn't as hard as I was expecting it to be. Those, like I said, like Romandy and Swiss, those World Tour stage races where you've got a lot of climbing is where I struggled the most. And I think, a lot of that just comes down to development and, still being a young rider, you've still got a lot of progression that you can make. And just being able to stick with the guys on the climbs is, something that, you're only going to get better at the more you do it and the stronger you get. And so for me, them tough stage races were, they were really hard, but I kind of found my place in the classics and them classic style races, Big Bank and Tour de Wallonia and stuff like this. And I was kind of able to show that I can ride for a top 5, top 3 in those races, and I was pretty happy about that.
So as you develop, you mentioned it earlier, tough day, kind of sprint after a tough day is kind of maybe where you see yourself going. When you look at guys like Colbrelli, who's finishing third up a stage, and mountaintop finishing Tour de France, Van Aert, who can win stages that go up Vaughan too. Just like, how hard is it to win a proper big race?
Yeah, like, yeah, I did Big Bang Tour, and those stages were solid. A couple of those days in the Ardennes and stuff like that, they were solid days. And yeah, you need to yeah, they're tough to race. They're not easy. They're not easy at all.
How do you pick your stages then if you're thinking, right, I want to develop into this type of rider, this is the type of race I could win? I noticed you barely did any, I'm not going to call them easy races, but this year it was all kind of tough World Tour races. You didn't really dip down into the 2.1s or the 1.1s. As a kind of, would you like to kind of dip down a little bit to try and get that first win before you then go back up, or are you happy racing at the top level?
No, I think yeah. So it'd be nice to dip down and get my hands in the air, and as a bike rider, you've got to learn how to win before you got to learn how to win, and the only way you're going to learn how to win is in those smaller races where it's more your level and it's easier to win in those races. It's like yeah, I never won a UCI race as an under 23, and kind of still chasing that win. And yeah, certainly, I've got the level to be able to win at those 0.1 races and 0.2s and stuff. So yeah, it'd be nice to race at race at my level where I'm not getting my head kicked in, and I can actually do something rather than just being a passenger in the races and getting dropped, being in the gruppetto, and that's your day kind of thing. Certainly, yeah, I want to get my hands in the air and learn how to win, and if I can carry that then into the World Tour, then yeah.
Are you going to change anything in terms of your winter training compared to last year to this year?
Yeah, I think obviously, so yeah, I just had 5 weeks off season after national championships, which is the same as I had last year. And then, like I mentioned, I was just in the UK last year. So yeah, this year, we've got a team camp again in December, which is really good. And then probably again in January. So yeah, that would be a huge difference to last year. And yeah, hopefully it'll be a good change that, will help with my progression and just getting out in the heat and, get some better training and better quality and time on the bike there will set me up better for the start of the season.
And you mentioned the possibility of doing a Grand Tour this year. Have you got anyone in particular?
Yeah, I think speaking with the team, the sensible thing is to do the Vuelta. It allows me to focus at the start of the season on the classics, and if you do the Giro, it's pretty close after the classics. If you come out of the Giro cooked and you don't really recover from it, then you can write off that whole last part of the season from after the Giro. So yeah, I think the sensible thing is to focus on the classics, the opening part of the season, get a good recovery in, and then start the build up towards the Vuelta and get a good Vuelta under the belt.
Well, I'm looking forward to it already. Jake, thanks very much for giving up your time tonight, and hopefully 2022 is a good one for you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.